Who are the society in Red Rising? How did gold rise to the top? What functions do the other colours serve for the society as a whole and for gold? Friends, let's find out, and welcome to a Red Rising lore video, a limited series to the channel. The next planned video is on the institutes, and that's already made, so I can follow through on that one for you. General spoiler warning from here. The society are the government of the humanity in the setting of Red Rising by Pierce Brown. They have ruled from on high for 700 years. The lives of humanity are divided, separated into colours. Each one is a caste. To colonise the moon, initially humanity needed a workforce to meet this need. People were brought in and enhanced genetically and surgically. Those people became the colours of the society. The ruling class at this time was still gold, but this was a rank rather than a genetic enhancement. But traits that were not wanted were bred out of the golds, and their bodies became superhuman by our standards. With enhanced bodies and minds, the other colours were also altered to serve the needs of gold and serve the needs of the society as a whole. Gold went to war with those who ruled Earth at the time. Those who ruled Earth lost, and gold reigned from then on with iron reigns. So let's do the pyramid with each colour and their role in brief before we go more in depth on the majority of them. The rules of gold are at the top. Other high colours are silvers, who are businessmen, whites falling into the roles of judges and clergy, coppers work in administration, I'd be a copper then, lawyers and bureaucrats are also covered by copper. Then we have the mid-batch of colours. Blues are starship pilots, yellow doctors and also researchers, green programmers and also do technical work. Violets are creative artisans. Oranges are the mechanics and engineers of the society. The greys are normal in terms of the colour, and they work in the roles of police officers and soldiers. Then we have the lower colours, the elite soldiers of the obsidians. Browns are servants, cooks, etc. Pinks are for the pleasure of other classes, particularly gold. And reds do the manual labour such as mining. Each of these have subclasses within them, and we will touch on some of those as we go through the main colours. So let's start with one of the most intriguing ones I didn't really know much about, which will be white. They look after the rituals of the society, keeping alive old traditions. In that way, gold revere history like the Romans, but do not want to repeat the Romans' mistakes. And they teach the young golds as mentors about their role in society. The highest whites can climb to the title of justice. When you start on that ladder, you are known as a chance. This study will start at a young age. You will be taken to a monastic sanctuary where you will study, trying to leave behind humanity and take on the spirit of justice. If they are judged to have reached a state of transcendence and enough courage within them, then they will be chemically blind, and they now sit as an elite justice. Trials with the golds, such as duels, are officiated by an elder justice and a chance. They sit in a bone chair and give an opening blessing to the duel. The chants surround the duelist in white sand, and a branch of elm is broken for a duel to begin. In an actual trial, both whites must examine and add additional charges if needed to what is decided. They can ring a bell based on their judgment, and this will break into the trial, and that's where extra charges can be given. A court must take on board these recommendations. Whites can also do other work for the society, such as brokering guilds or appraise artifacts before they are sold. So they do function in a very interesting way as a counterpoint to gold, trying to offer some sort of separate, real-ish justice. Now we move on to green. They develop and program technology. They will often have piercings, implants and tattoos, as well as taking recreational stimulants. They are a colour that really embraces their transhumanism. For example, many will put sensors and lenses into their eyes. They can work in a number of areas such as virtual reality, recreational centres, and also installing technology into people when it's needed. It's the violets, who we will come to in a moment, who handle biological change. Green can also be an IT technician, and when they work with oranges, together they will serve spaceships using their technical knowledge. Now violets, they are quite rare and are the creative industry of the society, artists, musicians and performers. They are given drugs to help with the output, and they can also design the buildings within the society. There might be a colony called the Grove where violets are raised. They're there given psychedelics and made to create what they have in their nightmares. The idea behind all this, I assume, to help with their creativity. One particular type of them are known as carvers. They can create creatures from legend, such as giant sea creatures and griffins, but they can also aid with birthing a child between colours, or changing the colour of someone to another type, such as from white to gold. Now, pinks are made to give pleasure to others within the society. They live in a place called gardens. At the start, they are just made to be beautiful, but over time, their owners, most likely gold, wanted more. So ones dubbed roses are trained in human interaction to read the body language of those around them to engage with their masters on a mental level as well. When their young pinks are implanted with a Cupid's kiss, this causes them a constant burning pain in the spine. This is only later taken out when they start physical training, but it leaves a mark on the pinks. They think the pleasure comes from what they can offer to the other colour they are with, but this is actually the lack of pain from the Cupid's kiss, and it can be threatened on the pinks if they do not agree to do as their masters desire to put that back into them. And one of my favourites, the obsidians, are also considered a low colour. They are bred, most are told, only for war. They try to rise against gold during the Dark Revolt. After this, they could only live in the polar regions of Earth and Mars, with no access to or knowledge of advanced technology, and they worship the golds as gods, and the golds dress up for such occasions to impress them. With their limited knowledge of life in the larger solar system, their lands are populated with carved horrors, such as beasts from Earth legends like dragons and griffins. The bonds between the tribes are weakened further by the shamans, who are bribed to keep the people divided. They originally had a culture based on Mongolian history, but this was changed to Nordic after the Great Revolt, as was the leadership. Mostly it was the men of the tribe that were in charge. After this, it was changed to the women. Some of the female leaders know the truth about the golds. And just two interesting little notes here. I really like how the society, even as it is set up at the start, is not perfect. Note the differences made to the pinks, who were only made to look beautiful at the start, and then greater depth was added to them in order for them to engage with the golds better. And in this situation, we have the obsidians, who attempted to revolt and were punished for it. Perhaps some of the history when they were modelled on the Mongolians somehow led them to that revolt, whereas with this new Nordic influence, we'll say, in the obsidians, perhaps that somehow helps them to not pick up weapons against their masters. There is a tradition amongst obsidian warriors called Ashvar. When one's honour has been wronged, they can then restore that honour with a one-to-one duel. They will show their part in the ceremony by using coal to mark themselves with the symbol of the Norse god of war on them, and at that point they stop all worldly concerns until they have ended their vendetta. Then the one who has been challenged decides the details of the duel, and even picks a champion to fight for them. But if this champion falls, then the one they fought for must be killed straight away by their own side. And playing what we mentioned earlier, a characteristic that marks them as different to the other colour is that the obsidians speak their own language. They had Mongolian roots, and after the revolt, Norse. But much like the warriors from ancient Sparta, young obsidians are trained in the agog. They are given little food and must steal food and supplies to prove themselves, also like the Spartans. Perhaps because gold admire that ancient race. I think being able to find things like that for a soldier, scavenging things for his army, food and equipment, that is actually quite a useful skill as well. Now we go into, in brief, a few different types of stained, or different types of obsidians, I should perhaps better say. The first, the stained, have walked the way of stains and been recruited by the gold, masquerading as gods to be elite soldiers and bodyguards. They can carry some technology, but are still bound by the larger prohibition. They can't carry a razor, the main weapon of gold. They are marked with iron tattoos on their lids. Other types are berserkers who take a combat drug to go into a frenzy. Those who live beyond the rim, Askomana is how I'm going to say it. They are broken away from the society. They are violent and ruthless and cannibalistic, as legend tells it. Now let's look at red, the lowest colour in the society. The low reds slave away in mines to power the wider society's equipment using helium-3. And those that are considered high within the red colour do menial work on the planet's surface. With the tasks, they have a low life expectancy and might soon find themselves in an afterlife dubbed the Veil. In that life, an old man guides them, and the Reds are told that there they will meet their loved ones. There is another less peaceful Veil. It's where you'll meet the Reaper, an angel of death who judges those who have died. He exists on the road to the Veil, and his scythe separates the guilty from the innocent. Within the mines as well, there are distinct groups. So those of the area called Lycos are people of song and dance, for example. They make music with an instrument called a zither, and with it they produce great folk music. Every colony on Mars is split into 24 clans. Their competition between them means that a quarter of them receive a laurel. Galman clan keeps winning this, and the laurel means better food, more burners to smoke, etc. And ultimately motivation to keep them working against each other and for the larger society. They are pilots and astronavigators for the society. They will learn complex physics and maths to be able to fulfill this role. And I'm now talking about the Blues, by the way. But one more thing that just came to me on the Reds. The Reds, particularly those in the mines, think that there is no one on the surface, that they are still working to terraform the planet for the other colours to arrive, when in reality the other colours have been on that surface for a long time, and it is a lie fed to the red people in the mines. Now let's return to blue. Sorry, that just came to me now. Blue are made for long and isolated journeys, so they share everything with each other: food, beds, friends, and beds with lovers. They're able to link with ships using the digitats on their bodies. In battle, blues communicate non-verbally and instead talk through the currents in their brains that interact with each other. Now, the golds, who I both love and dislike. They're at the top of the food chain. Whilst being physically enhanced, they're also mentally smart. The initial reason for gold when they moved out into the solar system, just to remind you, was to shepherd lower colours into colonisation. Their bodies were made to withstand harsh environments in space and lead the lower colours to grow mankind. Now, gold have loyalty to many different factors within their lives. The first is to their own colour and its continuation, I would argue. Then family, planets, and then house. Most houses are ruled by generally strong families. So on Mars this would be House Augustus, House Bologna, and so on. The lower colours will refer to gold as Dominus or Domina, Roman slave names, as I remember, at least in the great series Spartacus Blood and Sand. And a group of golds are known as Domini. Now let's take a look at the enhancements. All this is compared to normal humanity. Their bones are 5 times stronger, and they have better strength in their tendons, ligaments, etc. They can hold their breath for 5 minutes. Their irises are gold. They have gold or blonde hair and a gold sigil on the back of each hand. Along with these enhancements and regimes of cellular rejuvenation therapy, they live a lot longer than the humans of old Earth. So let's take a brief look at the social classes within gold before we wrap up this video. The Iron Golds, such as House Ra, were the conquerors that overthrew old Earth's governments, and this term is used on any gold that does a feat that can be compared to it. The term Pixie is used on those who party, not caring for their own health or politics. The weaker amongst the gold are called Bronze. Then we have the Peerless Scarred, gold who have survived and graduated from the institutes. Those who come from the institutes and do little are called graduates. And finally, the shamed are those who come through the institute but perform badly. They are sent to the edges of the solar system and given administrative duties to perform. And speaking of the institutes, I'll be doing a full video on that, probably from when I release this in around a week's time afterwards. So I hope you enjoyed the general law of Red Rising and the basic grounding that this video will give you on it. If you read the books, did you enjoy them? If you haven't, I'd recommend you check them out. And I hate to be the guy that says this, but you can have to read the first 2. The first one's decent, but it reminds me of quite a lot of other series like the Hunger Games and the Battle Royale Japanese, I believe, movie. But then 2 really comes into its own, and from then on it's all gold. On that note, friends, I'll wrap up today's video on the colours of the society.